Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala barakatuh. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Alhamdulillah, we are still discussing on this chapter of chapter 5, that is this chapter on positive Islamic psychology model. Islamic psychology model based on this model developed by the late Professor Muhammad Mahdi Jenkins, of how we are going to develop, for example, the framework, the presuppositions, the various components of this model, and how this is applicable to Muslims in the 21st century. And as I've mentioned earlier on, we have developed this model based on the great scholars of the past and integrating it with modern psychology. So this is the way forward for us. We are propounding or proposing this model, and maybe some of you may develop a better model based on the videos that we have given. You can develop a better model and inshallah see how we can improve the whole idea of this 21st century ummah, because we are not facing the challenges of the past. If it is in the 7th century, the 14th century or the 19th century, the challenges are radically different today than the past. And because of this radical change in terms of urbanization, in terms of neo-atheism, in terms of agnosticism, in terms of arrogance, in terms of valueless society, meaningless society, hedonistic ideologies and so on, all these things are coming into play in this 21st century. And this is a century in which the ummah will face the greatest of all challenges. So how are we going to do that would then be a way forward for us to be able to first, inshallah, maintain our iman, our Islam, and practice our ihsan, to strive to understand our purpose and meaning in life in the way that is consonant with this deen of Islam. Alright, so that is our final goal in terms of, inshallah, developing a motivation for the young people, or the Khalifa method that we have, you can see in this book about parenting, positive parenting from the Islamic perspective. What is the model about how to carry about in terms of civilizational development for the ummah? How are we going to participate in the 21st century positively instead of destructively, and so on. So all these things come about because we must have an understanding of nature of human civilization and existence in the 21st century vis-a-vis the intrinsic, unchangeable deen of truth that is within Islam. And to fuse that together, to put it together, this is what we want to do. So based on our model, based on this model, you can see this in this book, all right, and it's repeated again in the chapter 5. Our perception, all right, whatever that we perceive is in this dunya, all right, whatever that we perceive in this dunya comes from input. So what are the input? The input will be the three environmental sources, that is the physical environment, the social environment, and then we have this inner speech. So our perception will drive ourselves. So this is, imagine a person, all right, this person will have the sum total of all his experiences, events that happen in his life, the feelings, feelings, emotion, thoughts, behaviors, action, outcomes, frustration, anguish, happiness, the whole spectrum of human spirituality, emotionality, mind, and physicality. So this integrated aspect of this human self, that is the physical body, the roh, the qalb, and akal, and they are all integrated. What is manifested in the physical body comes from the roh, comes from the qalb, comes from the akal, and vice versa. So this interplay, which I've explained in the previous model of the four realms of existence, the S.E.M.P, is always integrating. When this integrate, how then we see ourselves? Because from here then we can see that from here what we have is outcome. What is the outcome of our life or existence? Okay. So this is the reality in which the physical environment we know. For example, the physical environment can be our, just like Maslow theory or hierarchy of needs, the need for our food, for shelter, and then at a higher level for education, and so on. Alright? Social environment is where we interact, whether we're living in a slum, or living in a corrupt society or a good society, and then our internal dialogue within us, in terms of our belief systems, our values, our interaction with our internal self. That means at the spiritual, emotional, mental and physical level, and then at the social level, intra and intersocial. That means with society, with our family, with society, with the global universe today. Because they're all interplaying today, because we are now moving towards one almost homogeneous society. We are becoming what we consider a global village. So whatever happened in New York will also influence what happened in Mecca or Medina. You cannot run away from that. So in 20 years from now, the value systems of the Saudis within Mecca or Medina will be so much influenced by the social media, because it's instantaneous. Whatever happened to a film star, whatever in Hollywood, would be known by them. And if they are following a lifestyle of easygoing, no value system, hedonistic, they will just pick it up, because it's a click of a button. And this dunya is very, very influential. It's very easy to fall into that path. So what is important is this environment will also shape their perception. But Allah has given us inner speech. That means within ourselves, Allah has given us strength. Strength in terms of what? Strength in terms, for example, the greatest of all strength is Iman. The greatest of strength is Islam. The greatest of strength is our expression of our Iman and Islam through Ihsan. Those are the value system and beliefs that we built in positively. So if we are able to bring this idea to our children, starting from preschool, starting with parenting, just like, for example, in our book, we have this Khalifa method. It tells you all about parenting, positive Islamic parenting, because you got to start parenting your kids, your children, the moment they are born, towards understanding the value system that is holistic, that of our existence in the realm of the spiritual, emotional, mental and physical, and how these are interacted, and give them the beautiful adab based on Islam and based on the universal value system. You're not talking about Islamic values, you're talking about Christian values, Jewish values, Hindu values, Buddhist values, but not hedonistic free-for-all values, because they got no values. To them is valueless. We are with value. To them is meaningless. We are full of meaningless. So this is the difference, that this battle is going to be so severe that along the way many Muslim families will fall on the sideway. This is unfortunate, because the pull of the dunya is so strong, especially in the 21st century. The pull of free sex, the pull of free drugs, the pull of doing anything and everything without concern, without care, without bothering about the consequences, will be so attractive, because this physical environment is so powerful, because you get instant reward. Just like Pavlov conditioning, it's very easy to condition you to love this dunya, but it is very difficult for you to accept via media of a higher goal of life after death, because they cannot see that, they cannot feel it, they cannot understand that. So that's why it's important for the intrinsic Islamic model, we develop a perception that can understand the higher goals or higher ideals of existence, civilizational Islam, that is a civilizational, positive civilizational Islam that we have to develop. And how are we going to go about with it? We start with the children. As I mentioned to you, we have our Khalifa parenting, Khalifa method. You go to our book, we have booklets on Khalifa method also. Then The next level is we have to develop a form of motivation, because all of us need motivation. Our children need motivation to lead a good life consonant with the ideals of Islam. Then after motivating them, we have also to coach them. So we coach them towards the right direction, coach them in terms of being able to do salah, coach them in being able to have a wonderful family life, coach them being respectful for the parents and the grandparents and society and the elders and the alim and the ulama and so on. That's coaching. Then we have to mentor them, hold their hand, bring them to the mosque, explain to them the beauty of salah and so on. So we have this mentoring. And finally, along the way, you will have a lot of these young people who will have fallen into the trap of drug addiction, free sex, free living, couldn't be bothered, not bothered in studying and so on. So they go on the wayside. That is where we have to develop a very strong framework for counseling. So we have these 4 levels, which inshallah we'll have a new book to cover, especially targeting youth. That is, we are talking about, we must motivate ourselves and our family and our community and our society. Then we must, at the second level, we must coach all our children. We must mentor them at a high level, and at the highest level, when we have challenges, we must do a lot of interactive counseling. This is where the whole spectrum of the idea of positive Islamic psychology being developed by Professor Mahdi Jenkins, this man, all right, he has passed on in 2006. Okay, all right, this is me anyway. So we are trying to do that. This is to our utmost best. We are trying to bring across this model, and this model is an integration of the model of the great scholars of Islam of the past with modern psychology, and then we bring in the spiritual, emotional, mental and physical component. And most important is we are trying to bring an outcome of our life and existence that is positive. So this is what we call positive outcome in life in terms of what we have. So for example, you can use a mental trigger. It's a way of remembering your children. Peace, happiness. We can have peace, happiness, success, or you can have love, peace, okay, care, fair, share. So you teach your children these 5 good values: love, peace, care, fair, share. So all the time in the mind they are talking about bringing an outcome of love, an outcome of peace, an outcome of fair, of share. So this just within your finger, these 5 values are universal values, which we can influence them, imprint when they are still young, and bring them along the way so that they would then be able to practice Islam in the 21st century. Not Islam of my for example, I'm born in 1950. Not the Islam of 1950s. The Islam of 2020, 2030, 2050. All right? The intrinsic values are the same, but the way of life, the way of communication, the way of understanding will be so much more different. We have to bring the intrinsic truth in a new environment, and that is the greatest challenge that we have to face. So we have to bring out this positive outcome, and this positive outcome will then bring us to Jannah. We hope and pray that Allah give us the way to Jannah. But if we are unfortunately going the other direction, all right, we follow the atheistic, agnostic, free for all, negative lifestyle with drug addiction, with free sex, with free everything. Everything is free, okay? So this dunya has a very good pull. This will then bring us to our Jahannam. Okay? So this is a choice. This is the model. This is the outcome. We hope and pray that we can develop this model. But each and every one of us is answerable to ourselves, our children, our grandchildren, our family, our society, our community, in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on Yawmul Mahshar. What have we done to save this generation of our youth and children from self-destruction. This is our responsibility. So out of this sense of responsibility, I'm just recording these videos, putting it up so that we will train as many people as possible as our coach or mentors, youth coach or mentor, to motivate, to coach and mentor. And for those of you who are qualified in terms of psychology, psychiatry, human resource development, then you can go into another level that is like individual mentoring, coaching, counseling for those with a lot of problems, because we are seeing so much problems. All right, so each and all these of this problem also will give us a way out, a solution. So we find a solution, positively interact with the Muslims of the 21st century, bring about a middle path. This because Islam is a middle path, that we can partake in the joy, the happiness, the fulfillment, the achievement, the success of being a human being, of living a wonderful life in this dunya. Naturally, we have got to go through the trials and tribulation, the difficulties, the sadness. That's part and parcel of life. But if we have more episodes of goodness, of happiness, of fulfillment, of the joy, of gratitude, living in this world, having all the good things that we have been given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and always feeling that we can do something, and that something is for us to serve Allah and serve this deen in the best way that we can, through a positive approach. And that is the whole idea of positive Islamic psychology, the framework for Islamic psychology, of how we are going to develop, inshallah, as we develop more and more of this understanding, and a series of books to follow up on, especially in developing motivation, coaching, mentoring and counseling, inshallah. See you in the next video.